Good evening and welcome. Thanks for joining us on Love 101 FM on Facebook and on YouTube Live. This is Family Time. And Family Time is about your issues and your relationships. It's about your at home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. So stay with us and please connect with us via all our platforms. You can friend us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Family Life Ministries FLMJA. And on Instagram, you can keep up with what's happening at simply FLMJA. Now, while Family Time is a family program, we'd like to caution that it may on the odd occasion touch on what some may consider mature subject matters. And so your discretion is advised. I'm Roland Gale. Now, we celebrate men in the month of June, and the longer we get to celebrate each and every one of us, the better. Hence, the focus of our discussion today surrounds men's health and why it is important to have regular checkups. And it doesn't matter what you're checking up for. We're saying, men, check up, not out. So today, we will tackle an issue that continues to put men at risk, avoiding the doctor. From high blood pressure to prostate cancer and mental health concerns, many men wait too long to get help. But early detection can save lives. We'll talk about what keeps men from going to the doctor, the screenings they shouldn't miss, and what we can all do to support the men in our lives to take charge of their health before it is too late. While we explore the issue, we want to hear from you. Here is the feedback question for today. Men, when was the last time you got a checkup and why? Send your answers via WhatsApp text and WhatsApp voice notes to 997-3125. And please try to keep those voice notes to no longer than 30 seconds. And you can also call our studio lines at 968-8327 or 968-8328. And you can even watch us and comment live on Love 101 FM, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. We're going to be right back with our special guests, Michael Giardini, Professor Maya Clark Kuteya, and Dr. Patrick Toppin. And we'll jump right into the topic and reminding you what that is. Men, check up, not out. We're going to go for the break now.
This Father's Day, let your word speak love. Love 101 FM invites you to be part of Pages for My Father, a celebration of the quiet strength, faith, and presence of our dads. Simply send us a letter 100 words or less about your father in a WhatsApp message or a 1-minute voice note. We may read or play it on air as we honor fathers across Jamaica. Submit now to our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125 as we celebrate fathers with love. Be sure to put Pages for My Father as the heading so we can easily identify. Then listen for the feature during Love in the Morning, Morning Express, and Alive. Then on Father's Day, Sunday, June 15, throughout the day, and see if yours made the cut. Pages for My Father. Let's celebrate the great men in our lives. We're doing it on the family station. Love 101.
Don't give up on your hopes and your dreams is what he tells us.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101 FM, and welcome to our very special guests. We have Michael Giardini, who has triumphed over prostate cancer. We also have Professor Maya Clark Kuteya, who is Assistant Professor, NYU, Rory Myers College of Nursing and Grossman School of Medicine. And we also have Dr. Patrick Toppin, who is a lecturer in anesthesia and critical care at the University of the West Indies and head of critical care at the University Hospital. We have a full house this evening. How are you all?
Fine, thank you.
Good evening.
Excellent,
Thanks
sir.
for having us.
Our pleasure to have you here.
Looking forward.
Respect, Doc, respect. Well, I'm going to call everybody Doc tonight, our professor. Oh boy. No, I want us to get off to a flying start. But for our listeners and our viewers, remember your feedback question. Men, when was the last time you got a checkup and why? And you can always WhatsApp those responses to 997-3125. And we're going to ask you to keep the voice notes no longer than 30 seconds. And we get straight into the topic. Across Jamaica and the wider Caribbean, it is still common for men to delay or avoid medical care, even when something feels wrong. And so we're going to talk about the reasons behind this pattern and what keeps so many men from walking through clinic doors. And we're going to start with you, Dr. Toppin. From your experience with patients here in Jamaica, what are some of the biggest reasons that men avoid going to the doctor, even when they're not feeling well?
All right. Thank you for the question. Sadly, I'll start off by saying, I consider myself a researcher, and there's not a lot of research on the topic. So sadly, I'm going to answer maybe based on my experience as a man living in Jamaica and personal experience. That's a complicated question. I would say there's some of the screening tests, things you associated with, like looking for prostate cancer, looking for colon cancer, colonoscopy, something as simple as blood tests. I've generally found that men are less enthusiastic about being stuck by a needle than women. So that kind of negative connotation around the test. Go do this, go to the doctor, bad things happen, you feel uncomfortable, you get stuck by needles, and into your normal response. You're feeling a little bit off, let me go to the doctor and get checked out. A big part of what I do anesthesia. So I see a lot of people coming for surgery, and I see a lot of people with much more men with more advanced disease who haven't, had this condition, a cancer, for example, picked up as early. So I'd say there's a very complicated, and there is a difference between men and women. And men are less likely to go early. And a big part of it is socialization and the perceived or real discomfort associated with going to the doctor and getting these tests done.
Interesting. Thank you, sir. Dr. Maya, in your practice, what kinds of barriers tend to keep men from coming in for care?
I would say that Dr. Toppin is absolutely correct. There's a lot of concern about, social norms and being sort of tough and stoic. There's always the fear of what they're going to find out. And then the desire or need to kind of minimize or deny as a result of that toughing it out, trying to be stoic, being the man, being tough, that sort of ideal. I also think that there is a lack of normalizing the need to take care of oneself as a man, and that there's this falsity around gender norms and who does what, who asks for help, and kind of a provider can be seen as such. But also those norms lead to the desire and need to work, with prioritizing taking care of the home, that sort of thing. And so time off work, the cost of that, the impact on that on the family tends to be a bit of an issue. And also it's just, I don't know how many men in your family, but none of the men in my family talk about anything related to their health or their emotions. And so that also just does not happen. So I think it's a multitude of things. that I've seen, particularly most of my practice where I work with men have been surrounding urologic issues. So everything from prostate cancer to erectile dysfunction to kidney cancer to bladder cancer. And usually we do find out when it's way far gone and further along than I would like it to be for all of those reasons.
Thank you. One of those things, Sir Michael, one of the things that I'm hearing from both of the doctors is that there appears to be a kind of fear. In your case, thinking back to before your diagnosis, were you the type of man who would have avoided doctor's visits?
Never was that type of man.
Never.
Never. In fact, I had started doing I remember my first executive profile. I was doing a job in 1990. I was applying for a job, and it was standard procedure for them to do an executive profile before anyone was employed. And I did one in 1991. I would have been about, help me with them, 37 years old, somewhere there. And I didn't, at the time, they were saying back then it was like the age of 50 to check for things like prostate cancer. Thankfully, everything was fine at that stage. And then as I got closer to 50, I started testing. I must admit, though, that probably in my about 2 or 3 years in my early 50s, for some reason, I just wasn't doing it anymore. Not that I was afraid, but I figured everything was fine, felt fine. And then I met a friend of mine one day, and he says, Mike, why I did this thing, have you been checking on yours? I said, what thing? And then he told me he had a radical prostatectomy, of course, removal of the prostate because he had prostate cancer. I said, wow. So I said, I've been checking, but probably I haven't done any tests for the last 2 or maybe 3 years. And then I just restarted. So when mine was detected, it was picked up so much so that I was doing annual checks. And then when they saw a slight movement in my base level from my PSA readings, my urologist said, okay, fine, you're going to do it for 6 months. So we started 6 months reviews. And then he said, okay, fine. No, I'm seeing the movement here that I'm not comfortable with. The biopsy and the rest, as we say, is now history. Yeah.
That's interesting, sir. I get the impression that you may be the exception rather than the norm.
I would want to think I'm among, I would say, the 20% of men that I am aware of. But it's crazy. I can tell you, since Sunday of last week through to yesterday, in those 8 days, I've had 4 people very close to me. One, a wife crying, saying that her husband was in the hospital, never knew that and he's like in his mid-60s, stage 4 cancer. And I take it personal now because I think none of my friends should be unaware, and I'm not reaching them. It means my communication is not being effective. That's how I look at it. Another one is waiting on readings because he's a survivor, but his PSA readings have started going up. And I'm just hoping it's just a temporary, blip on the screen. Probably, something else but a return of the cancer. And then 2 now that are waiting on test results. But hey, it's very, very prevalent. And if there are 2 words I'm going to keep saying throughout this is get screened. Get screened, gentlemen. Get screened.
All right, we're going to have to run for a break. And I want to remind our viewers and our listeners to answer the feedback question. Men, when was the last time you got a checkup and why? We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And you can send your answers via WhatsApp to 9973125. And of course, just so you know, the numbers for the FLM head office in Kingston are 9201034. That's 9201034 and 9268101. Stick around for more insight and advice from our guests, Michael Giardini, Professor Maya Clark-Kutea, and Dr. Patrick Toppin. Soon be back.
The time by Grace Could Move is
5:45. Yo, but I face bruise up. They beat me just because I said I'm tired.
I'm only 13, but they said if I work harder, they will make me go back home.
Me not have no birth paper nor no ID. Them have all of my documents then. Forced labor is one of the many forms of human trafficking. Report suspected cases of human trafficking. Call the nearest police station, 119 or 888-PROTECT. A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Febreze. Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze Plugs, an air freshener that delivers continuous scent for up to 50 days when you plug it in low mode. Indulge in wonderful scents for weeks with Febreze. La, 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 la.
This Emancipation Day, experience a night of powerful praise and purpose. CC Winans brings her More Than This tour to Jamaica with Chevelle Franklin, Kevin Downswell, Prince Saj, John Mark Wigan, hosted by IT Ellis and Nadine Blair. Gates open 2 p.m., showtime 5 p.m. Tickets at select outlets island-wide or online at SpurOpen.com. Follow at More Than This Jamaica on Instagram for updates. CC Winans, More Than This, a concert with a cause. Friday, August 1, King's House East, Lawns.
We are talking about men check up, not out. And this is Family Time on Love 101 FM. And I am inviting our guests when they return, and I'm waiting for them to return now. All right, great. Our guests are Michael Giordini, who is a cancer survivor. We also have Professor Maya Clark Kuteya, who is assistant professor at NYU, Rory Myers College of Nursing and Grossman School of Medicine. And we have Dr. Patrick Toppin, head of critical care at the University Hospital. Whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, or prostate cancer, many of the most serious health issues for men start silently. And let's talk about what every man in the Caribbean should know about risk factors, early detection, and getting ahead of the problems before they start. And I want to begin with you again, Dr. Toppin. What are some of the most common conditions you see in older Jamaican men, and they don't often know they have it until it is far along? What are some of the most common ones?
Yeah, that's a pretty long list there.
Long list.
You can start with something simple like hypertension. The bad thing about high blood pressure is you often feel absolutely fine until you don't. I mean, one day you have an MI, a heart attack or a stroke, and I'd say diabetes is similar, meaning you can have it and have minimal or no symptoms of going about your life without. And those I'd say are very, very common. I'd say if you're looking at older population, more than half of men upward are going to have high blood pressure, and maybe 20 to 30% are going to have diabetes. Cancers, prostate cancer, Jamaica has I'd say one of the higher rates of prostate cancer. That's also something that you can have absolutely no symptoms, unless you're going looking for it. Colon cancer. There are a lot of cancers. I'm going to mention, I won't call this a disease, but it's something I have a particular interest in. Is the idea of how people get age and health and function. It's not enough, just to say, all right, I don't have a cancer, my blood pressure's under control, I haven't had a stroke. But a lot of us, in preparing for getting older, there's a lack of foresight. How am I going to be? Will I be able to take care of myself? Am I going to be very dependent on people for shopping, cooking, cleaning? And there's a lot of that. Maya hinted at the mental, psychological aspect, which I'll say men are notoriously difficult in addressing, just mental health. So there are so many aspects to that, so many different conditions that are from something as simple as depression, which can be subtle and not obvious to everybody around them. And I'd say men are particularly reluctant to go and sit and talk with an expert I'm not coping with the stresses in life. Maybe disease. I'm struggling with financial matters and my health, and I'm not
Wow.
coping with that well.
Wow, Doc, you said something that caused me to think and kind of ponder. You said that we don't necessarily prepare for aging as men. We don't prepare for aging. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I said.
How does one as a man, how do we prepare for aging? I don't want to take over the program with that, but if you can just give us a
this is
couple.
definitely something near and dear to my heart. So I'll try to be brief. Control of chronic illnesses. So taking care of your blood pressure, your diabetes, that can make a big deal on if I have a heart attack, if I have a stroke, that's gonna change my ability just to live and take care of myself. Something like exercise becomes more critical, and not just walking and cardiovascular strength. Strength is a big part of, not a big deal when you're young, but the strength to go take my groceries from my car to my house and put them up doesn't seem like a big deal when you're.
Hey, Doc, you're going to match my car now, I used to walk up and down stairs with those cases of water, the 32 small buckets of water. Used to trot upstairs with those. I'm finding nowadays I can't trot again. I'm kind of holding on to the railing and taking my time coming up. How does strength factor in there?
Strength is what you use to live. Strength is what allows you to get up out of the chair with your severe arthritis. Strength is what allows you to pick up your grandchild and walk with him. It's an underappreciated aspect of fitness, particularly in an older person. The idea that you need to be as strong as possible is not up on the high on the list of things people are saying as you get older, but it's a big part of just daily activities.
Right. Go ahead, Doc. You were listing a couple of things because we don't want to spend too long on this, but go ahead.
For me, a lot of depression, socialization, family support, nutrition. All these are interrelated and are gonna play. Having super family support, good relationships make such a difference in how people face old age and dealing with all the complications. Men in particular. And men are.
Thank you. Men are in need of doing these things and being more aware, communicating about these things more. Dr. Maya, we're talking about men check up, don't check out, right? And we want to ask you now, what are some of the challenges in explaining complicated procedures, different guidelines, especially to patients who these men just want a simple, clear answer. When they do eventually come to you, they don't want to hear no whole heap of complicated stuff.
Yes, this tends to be probably one of my soapboxes, much like Dr. Toppin. I think this is the things that we talk about. So most of the time I do see men when they're in more advanced stages of whatever they're coming for. And typically it's a symptom that brought them in. And usually the symptom is something that is of great importance to them. So the conversation we were just having about strength, it's not typically strength for my patients. It's usually erectile dysfunction, that they can't have sex. And then we get a plethora of blood work back, and we find out that they have high blood pressure and they have diabetes and they've got kidney disease as well. And so we just have a very frank conversation about, if you want to have sex, these are the things you need to take care of. You need to manage your blood sugar, which means you have to eat right, which means you need to exercise, which means you have to watch out for your blood pressure. You have to take your medications. You've got to. So I just have a very frank, simple, basic conversation about how all these things interact with one another. You can't have one thing without taking care of the other thing in most of those circumstances. And so we talk a lot about it. And we do spend a lot of conversation about just basic lifestyle management.
I get you. Sir Michael, when you went and heard the diagnosis that you heard, when you were talking earlier, I got the impression that that kind of diagnosis, when you hear it from your friends, is striking you in a particular way. How did it strike you when you heard it about yourself?
Uh, I, I guess I was pretty calm, you know. Uh, I had a number of friends who had probably in the year or two prior to me having my diagnosis, they had gone through the process and we had been, you know, speaking to each other. In fact, so much so that when I had my diagnosis, and of course, my urologist, who was very good, had a meeting with both my wife and myself, and we sat down and chatted, and he gave us the options for the treatment. When the biopsy, the results of the biopsy came back, we had planned a vacation. And we said, listen, Doc, when I get back from that vacation, we'll talk. But certainly in that time, I was able to call on two of my friends who had gone through radical prostatectomies before, along with their wives, you know, in two separate sessions, of course, four of us just sitting down and talking about it. And I mean, listen, at the time, everything goes out the window. You just focusing on, let me get this cancer out of my body. Thankfully, I had been screened and I was checking. So once you see the movement, you know, it's an indication that it's likely that you would have a cancer. Well, in my case, mine was quite aggressive. So I heard like the May of the year, and by September, I did my prostatectomy after my vacation with the family that had been pre-planned.
Wow. Wow. And so you were doing your screening, and this didn't actually take you by too much surprise. That's a question.
No, because you could, you know, it was trending. In fact, when the doctor, when my urologist moved me from 12-month checks to 6 months, it actually fell in the first 6 months. And then the readings, the PSA readings, and then on the second one, it went up back. He said, listen, these movements are telling me something. And then did the biopsy, which confirmed that I did have prostate
Dr.
cancer.
Toppin, when you listen to Sir Michael, what do you think? How would your patients normally be responding to stuff like this?
There's a lot of fear, you know. There's a lot of fear of knowing, which I think prevents people from going and doing the test. And you know, sometimes you have this PSA reading, and it's not diagnostics, it's increasing, but it's telling you go and do an additional test. And there may be some avoidance. Let me avoid that test. That test could give me bad news. I'm not ready for that right now. So I'm not going to do that test. And I'd say he is an outlier to some extent. It sounds like maybe he and his little circle of friends there might be a bit of outliers, because I do think it's hard. It's hard for anybody, but especially men, to feel fine and get up and just go to the doctor for no reason. I feel absolutely fine. I must take time and do some tests and get stuck.
Yeah, and spend money too.
And spend money, yes.
And have your prostate checked.
And
yeah.
It's not a fun experience. I mean,
we'll talk about that when we come back from the break, Doc. We'll talk about that when we come back. But reminding our listeners, this is Family Time on Love 101 FM. And you could have caught us on YouTube and Facebook. You can still catch us. This is produced by Family Life Ministries. And for our social media interaction, we want you to tell us, men, when was the last time you got a checkup and why? Send your answers via WhatsApp text and WhatsApp voice notes to 9973125. And remember to keep your voice notes no longer than 30 seconds. And you can also call our studio lines at 968-8327 or 968-8328. Watch us and comment live on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. We want to hear from you, but it's break time. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Everybody's business. Call 1-888-PROTECT to report suspected cases of child trafficking.
The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6 o'clock.
This Emancipation Day, experience a night of powerful praise and purpose. CC Winans brings her More Than This tour to Jamaica with Chevelle Franklin, Kevin Downswell, Prince Saj, John Mark Wigan, hosted by IT Ellis and Nadine Blair. Gates open 2 p.m., showtime 5 p.m. Tickets at select outlets island-wide or online at spuropen.com. Follow at More Than This Jamaica on Instagram for updates. CC Winans, More Than This concert with a cause. Friday, August 1, Kings House East Lawns.
Welcome back. Let's go right to Reverend Mike with this week's episode of WTF Word to Flesh Moments with Reverend Mike.
How's your blood pressure today? What about your temperature? Are you having a fever? 2 Corinthians 13 says, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves. The Bible encourages us to constantly check up on ourselves. There are 4 dimensions to all of us: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. In Romans 12, the writer emphasizes this checkup point when he writes, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God. The Old Testament metaphor that the apostle uses speaks to a time when we had an animal sacrifice system and the attending priest had to check on the condition of the animal before it was offered to God. It had to be in the best condition. What's your condition as a living sacrifice today? 2 Corinthians 13 explains that the person against which you should test yourself is the Lord Jesus. Check yourself according to these character qualities of the Lord found in Galatians 5:22 and 23. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Ask yourself, have I been loving enough today? What about my joy? Did I keep the peace even when my enemies wanted war? Have I exercised patience and kindness with others today? Examine yourself. Ask someone to help you. For iron sharpens iron as one person sharpens another. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
Wow, that was so cool. Thank you for that, Reverend Mike. And we're going to invite our guest back in. And Reverend Mike is asking a interesting question as he spoke there. What's your condition as a living sacrifice? As a very important question to ask. Welcome back to all who came back after the break. You're tuned to Love 101 FM. This is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. And Family Life Ministries provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Our show this evening is about men. Check up, not out. And our special guests are Michael Giardini, Professor Maya Clark Kuteya, and Dr. Patrick Toppin. We're talking about fear, embarrassment, and maybe a little less of stigma, but those are some of the reasons that men delay going to the doctor for care. And let's talk about how we make checkups feel less intimidating and more like a normal part of life. I keep starting with Dr. Toppin, but I'm going to start with you again, sir. Don't worry. Are there any local programs or clinic changes you've seen that really help to bring men into care more consistently and more certainly?
I would start with, and I'm thinking more public hospitals and our clinics and screening, which play an important part of that. I think there's a need to make them a little more efficient in terms of disrupting, life and your day. I think in this day where people are talking about artificial intelligence, we could probably do a little better in terms of timing and scheduling. And I think that's within our ability to do. In terms of reaching out in terms of social groups, we can see or hear the advantages that Michael and his group, but it's a group of like-minded people that support each other and have, he called on the experience of having had friends who went through this, and he has subsequently spoken about reaching out to his friends to push, encourage, cajole, get yourself checked out. So that's definitely a big part of it. And I'd say one of the advantages that many men have is definitely in our setting, your partner has such a big factor in terms of health support. Who you're with, your wife, girlfriend, makes a big deal. And they definitely are often a source of encouragement to, hey, get that checked out. Where is that? I think definitely something multifactorial, encouraging people in different settings, maybe less stressful settings, different people, moving it from something, just general education, moving it from something that people are afraid of to less stress, less risk. I'm just trying to get this checked out. I'm going to go to the doctor and do some basic checkups.
Right. Dr. Maya, do you encourage men to bring somebody with them for support?
So I do. I often have, I always think that 2 sets of ears is better than one, particularly when you're hearing news. So if someone, you're getting results from a PSA or something like that, then it always is better to hear. I try very hard to have a conversation as if they were my family and explain to them, some of my parents' experience, my father's experience with prostate cancer, my father's experience with diabetes, my father's experience with high blood pressure, and what we did as a family, and how having that opportunity for us all to come together would have been nice, but we did not have that opportunity for us to all sit in a room and listen together, and take the information in as a whole and decide how we might be able to help my father make decisions and or support him through his diagnosis. So yeah, I really do encourage that. I think that Dr. Toppin is absolutely right about partners and how partners support that. Caregivers really support the success in managing a diagnosis. And so I'm 100% on board with, you want to bring your whole family, bring your whole family. Assign everybody a task. I'm happy to talk to everyone and answer all the questions. I do not mind the amount of time that it takes, because that does lead to better outcomes for sure.
Absolutely. Still with you, Dr. Maya. How do you build trust with men who have avoided doctors for years?
One, I tell them I'm not a doctor because I'm a nurse practitioner. And that sometimes helps. I don't usually introduce myself as Dr. Clark Kataya because I'm a nurse first. So sometimes that helps, but I also do what I say I'm going to do. So if I tell them, we're not going to do your prostate exam today, we're just going to talk about it. We just talk about it. And the next time we build on it. So I try to be as transparent as possible and really stick to what I say. And then I talk about my dad and my uncles and my mom and my sister, myself. I share our experiences as well, particularly the ones that did not go well, but I also share the successes. And I think that sometimes humanizing myself in a way that makes me approachable develops a level of trust that doesn't always happen. And I tell them, there's nothing you can say that's going to offend me. I've heard pretty much everything before. I've also probably seen it before. So whatever it is that you have, I'm here for it. And I think that just meeting people where they are tends to develop that level of trust a bit easier.
Right. Sir Mike, listening to you, I am of the opinion that you are in a particular kind of circle that is just so healthy and so wholesome, positive in a way. What advice would you give to Jamaican men listening right now who are avoiding the doctor? Sorry?
first and foremost, I want to thank God for one, the wife I have and the friends I have, because it actually led me to form a group, Brothers United Against Prostate Cancer, which basically our mission statement is to provide a nurturing environment for Jamaican men Jamaicans interested in addressing the physical, spiritual, and emotional issues surrounding prostate cancer survival, thereby advancing men's health and the ability to live fruitful lives. That virtually is our mission. And what it is, it's just a number of us over time that we have gotten together, survivors, and the doctors can tell you a lot of things, but if they haven't experienced it, it's a little different, right? They can, they're getting everything second, and you can give it to them first hand. But as Dr. Maya just said, we make it clear we are not doctors. We don't give medical advice. We do have within our group two urologists, some of our leading urologists in Jamaica as consultants. So if we have something in our group that someone passed to us, we pass it to them first to vet it, because we want to pass on information that's verified and credible. But the key thing is, as I said, just sharing, we have different ways you can contact. But the easiest way is you call the Jamaica Cancer Society, and we'll take calls. I mean, we get calls any day of the week from any of our members. And based on the person's experience, what they're going through, what stage they might at, I usually can find one of us as a survivor who you think kind of fits the profile to speak to the person, and you just chat with them, It's just... in your initial question to Doc as to how we can reach out, we actually last year had two what we call prostate cancer pop-up clinics. We had one in a mall and one in a mall by My Cancer Essentials. We spoke to the proprietor, who is a cancer survivor, and we did 40 working along with the Kingston and St. Andrew Public Health Department. They provided all the support. We did one there. We did another one with the St. Catherine Public Health Department at the Portmore Community College. So we're hoping to do quite a few more this year too, because you have to go to where the people are. They're not going to just on their own going to a clinic or hospital, as the both other speakers have been saying, that they just don't do it, And of course, what we do too, having gone through the experiences, is that we appeal to the women in the men's lives. You mentioned wives, the spouse, the significant other, the daughters, any female, because I think it's the socialization has a lot to do with it. The women have a menstrual cycle and they start watching all of this from a very early age. The men, not like that is necessary. And then plus, we are macho. We don't discuss these things, and we don't. If you're sick
Like
the flu, you just wipe your nose and hide. So that's it basically. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, excellent, sir, excellent. And we're heading into our final break now. It looked like time does fly on this program. And this is Family Time on Love 101 FM. You could have joined us on YouTube and Facebook. I hope you're still there. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. And for our feedback question, we're going to ask you this. Men, when was the last time you got a checkup and why? Send your answers via WhatsApp text to 9973125. And keep your voice notes, if you're doing a voice note, no longer than 30 seconds. We want to hear from you. But we're going to go for a break now. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Febreze. Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze Plugs, an air freshener that delivers continuous scent for up to 50 days when you plug it in low mode. Indulge in wonderful scents for weeks with Febreze. La, 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 la.
Welcome back. It is now 6:15 p.m. according to my clock, and you are tuned to Love 101 FM. This is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. FLM provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Remember, you can tune into the program via the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. Topic today is Men Check Up, Not Out. Our special guests are Michael Giordini, Professor Maya Clark Kutea, and Dr. Patrick Toppin. Let's wrap up by talking about what we all can do, clinicians, families, and men themselves, to build a culture where health is a priority, not a last resort. And we're going to invite our guests to come back in now. And while they return, we're going to read a quick comment from our Facebook page. It says, "Good evening, everyone. This is from Ray Finn. It says, good evening, everyone. Check if my blood pressure is okay. Also have a calcium situation to Cliff Hats. Why bless up all." I'm not sure what Cliff Hats is, but Ray Finn is saying that he checks his blood pressure, and he is sending blessings to all of our guests today. Welcome back, everyone. Good to have you on. It has been a pleasure having you here. And as we mentioned, we want to talk about what all of us can do as clinicians, families, as men, as wives, as whatever we are, whatever relation we are. What can we do? And I'm not starting with you, Dr. Toppin. I think I have picked on you long enough. Dr. Maya, I'm going to start with you. What are the most powerful things men can do daily that protect their long-term health?
I think Dr. Toppin kind of touched on a lot of these things. You know, eating well, staying active. Staying active is more than just, walking, but also doing the strength training, taking care of your mental health, having conversations about how you're feeling and what's going on with you, engaging in healthy relationships, managing your stress, finding some sort of outlet. As Michael was talking about, building these support groups really are beneficial to helping patients make decisions or supporting patients through processes. And so find out what your village is and lean heavily upon them. Bring your village along to go for your walks or doing your strength training and eating healthy. Ask questions, really build a relationship with your healthcare providers or your nurse or whoever that person may be. I think that building that practice of asking questions and trying to make very personal and patient-centered discussions and conversations and decisions start with the patient. So if you're not taking an active role in your health, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I would say those are the primary things.
Right. Earlier we mentioned mental health. How can that be emphasized as well in our conversations with the male patients?
So I often have this conversation as just kind of an everyday thing, like how I ask my patients quite often how they're feeling, what's going on at home, what's going on at work, how are they managing? Are they having trouble managing? Do they have means of expressing themselves or dealing with it? If there's anything additional they want to talk about that I haven't asked, I try to share a lot about this being a space that we don't talk about often, but that it impacts pretty much everything that we do. And so giving yourself the opportunity, giving yourself this gift of mental health is hugely important. I think every time that I'm talking about a chronic condition, I talk about mind over matter, how important it is to have faith, how important it is to care for oneself physically and emotionally so that you can survive and manage whatever the task may be at hand. Maybe you worked all day and now you have to make yourself dinner. Those things sometimes can be difficult while caring for a family, caring for a partner. And so having the ability to know how to take care of yourself and to take care of your mind so that you can have that space is imperative.
Absolutely. Sir Mike, I want to ask you, and I'm sure the men listening want to know, how has this journey affected you or changed you? The Mike that we heard about in the 1990s, is it the same Mike that we are talking to today?
Not quite. But before I answer that, could I just mention both Dr. Maya and Dr. Toppin in the whole thing of mental health? Would you say, asking about how they're sleeping? Because I find as an indicator how well you sleep is a fair indication of your health. Would you agree, doctors?
I would.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So some people don't willingly know or accept that they're under stress. But if you said, in, "Hey, how you sleeping?" and the guy said, "Boy, I'm waking up 3-4 times a night. Any reason why?" "Yeah, I'm going to the bathroom." Well, that tell you there's an issue. Or I get up, I go once, and I can't go back to sleep. There's an issue, you know. And what it is that people just don't know a lot of the time when they're under stress. I for one, just from my own observations, I figure a lot of cancer, a lot stress has a lot to do with it. Yes, there are issues from your genetics and the rest of it, but I do believe stress is. It hasn't been proven, but just talking among the numerous people that I talk to that have experienced it, somewhere along the line, there's quite a bit of stress. So, okay, so getting back to your question, now I've forgotten exactly what it was, but
I was asking you, how has the journey changed you?
oh, um, it certainly made me a lot more open and willing to discuss it with just about anybody. I mean, hey, I'm not afraid to say, "Hey, boss, hey, how you doing? Meet so and so. Hey, have you been checking your health generally?" We can start there. I don't ask them clearly if they're having checks on their prostate or is it general health. And what we do recommend is the best present you can give to any male is an executive profile for their birthday or a special date. Just give them as a gift and probably carry them too.
Absolutely.
Carry them too. Hey, I'm doing mine. Yourself and your spouse or your significant other. You go together and get the test done. You compare it. That way there's openness, and it builds relationships because you're both communicating at a most intimate level. Your health.
Absolutely, absolutely, sir. We do have a couple comments that we would want to get to, and there's one from WhatsApp. It says, "Good evening. What is the chance of a person with prostate cancer at the stage of 47.5? Because that's where my husband won't reach. What is the chance?"
I'll let the clinicians answer that one.
Yeah, man, me too. I don't have a clue.
So I believe that this question is about a PSA level of 47.5. The PSA level I like to think about as an indicator of a need to do something else. So it's a sign that we need to get a prostate needle biopsy, as we were discussing. The biopsy then tells us what the tissue looks like and how aggressive, if it is indeed a cancer. Sometimes a PSA of that's elevated could be an infection even.
Yeah.
And so it's important to take that number to your provider, talk to your doctor or your nurse practitioner, whoever it may be that you're seeing, about the level and what the options would be. Sometimes that is correct, that they will say, let's recheck it in 3 months and see what happens in 3 months. Sometimes they'll decide that it's time to do the biopsy there. Sometimes they'll try antibiotics based on symptoms. So it's hard to say based upon that score, based upon that PSA level. The really important thing is what the next step is. So definitely have a conversation, get your husband to go in and see somebody to talk about what the next step is.
Just as a reference, Doc, what is a normal PSA level?
So a normal PSA is usually somewhere between 0.4 and 4. However, some people are different.
Yeah.
Some people may be living a little bit higher. And so the important thing is to follow your trend. So if
Right. So you need a baseline.
Correct. So if yours is 0.4 and then all of a sudden it jumps up to 16, that's not normal. So we want to see what's happening there. And again, it could be something as simple as an infection, or it could mean that you have prostate cancer.
All right, we have another one here. It says, what can wives do to encourage husbands to check up and not to think they do not need to see the doctor just because they feel and look healthy?
If you're like me, you threaten them. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding, actually. I give my husband a hard time. I'm like, you made me have all these kids. You better not.
Don't leave it too early, right?
Don't leave me by myself. So I do think that the conversation about how important they are to you and normalizing what going to the doctor regularly, how that can impact your life, the lives of your family, the lives of others is really important. So I tend to have that conversation quite often, even though I said I threaten him. I do talk to him about it quite often.
Dr. Toppin, I was asking you for a male perspective on that question. What could your wife do to get you to come in sooner or more frequently if you were the kind of man who wouldn't go?
There's no one solution, and I will agree that Maya's more extreme approach may be absolutely appropriate at times. But what I would say is it many wives, significant others do find a way, and there's a fair amount of evidence that men in long-term stable relationships are healthier and live longer, and that's in the relationship. It is not as super clear the other direction, but so women do find a way to encourage their men to be healthier.
To be healthy.
It's part of that relationship. It's part of women's. I think part of women's role are socialized to care and to take care of those people around them.
Absolutely, Doc. We are out of time. I'm going to ask each of you just to give me 30 seconds, please. Your final comments on this topic. Men, check up. Don't check out. Your final comments, 30 seconds if you can. I'm going to ask you to begin, Sir Mike.
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
It can be. Just get checked, please. Whatever you do, start screening. Each person has their own levels, as Dr. Maya said. Your baseline. The first test that is done creates your baseline. After that, any variation around that baseline is what it's measured against, and each person has a different one. Please get checked and start. Get your screens at least once a year, please. And that's for prostate, but do all of your checks, your high blood pressure, everything. One executive profile, one time a year. The best birthday present you could give yourself.
Love it. Dr. Maya?
I'm going to follow that up and say that it takes strength to walk into that office and to face those numbers every day. And so if your concern is that, you're not strong enough or you're demonstrating weakness, the weakness isn't being afraid. The strength is having the courage to walk in and deal with it. So take the time for yourself and your family to show that strength, to show that courage, and to be a role model for others.
Excellent. Dr. Toppin, final word to you, sir.
I'll support all of those points. And I'll say it's a many-pronged approach. As part of a community, if you set yourself up as someone who's encouraging those around you, it kind of forces yourself to step up. If I'm going to encourage my wife, my children, my friends, my father, I need to step up. And I can't speak how important the community and social support is in getting checked up and dealing with things if you do find them.
Oh, I don't think we can hear you.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, you can't hear me. I'm sorry. I said thanks so much for being here with us. I was muted. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and your insights and your information has really been helpful. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It was a pleasure.
Happy to be here as always.
Great to have you all. Great to have you
all. A pleasure.
And for our listeners and our viewers, if you have questions of a personal nature, you're concerned about a friend or family member, call us. For more information on our services or for our counselors in Kingston and other parts of the island, contact our FLM head office at 920-1034 or 926-8101. Now, we've heard some of you have been having problems contacting us at our main numbers, which, as it turns out, is a provider issue. So while you can still try those numbers, we have two more. And it is those numbers are 5798-690 and 2798-678. Note that for appointments and information on costs, you must call the offices. Let me tell you the numbers again. 5798-690 and 2798-678. You can keep up to date with what's happening with us, our FLM programs, by checking out our new Facebook page at FLM-Family Life Ministries, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries-FLMJA, and you can also check us on Instagram at FLMJA. Before we leave you, here's our verse for this evening. You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. And that's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 20. Join us again next week for another informative program. Thanks to our special guests, Michael Giordini, Professor Maya Clark-Kutea, and Dr. Patrick Toppin. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, Dorval Graham for piloting us through this hour, Rashid Perry for providing resource and research services, and of course, you for joining us. I'm Roland. God bless you. Have a great week.